Family-only wedding? I don't want someone like a cleaner to attend. At that moment, it felt as if a sharp blade had pierced my heart. Standing before me was my son's fiancée, Mika, the woman I had thought would become part of our family. Yet without hesitation, she cast me aside with those words. My chest tightened, and I felt my breathing grow shallow. My hands and feet went numb, but somehow I forced myself to speak. Am I not family? My voice trembled, and somewhere deep inside I wished for her to deny her own words. But she did not. Instead, she shrugged her shoulders and turned cold, indifferent eyes toward me. Please leave. You're embarrassing to have around. Her dismissive words hung in the air, accompanied by a wave of her hand as if shooing away a stray dog. That insulting gesture nearly brought me to my knees. Sharp gazes from onlookers bore into me, and I felt like I was sinking into an endless abyss. In that moment, the promises I made with my husband and my love for my son felt trampled upon. But I couldn't crumble here. I clenched my fist tightly and repeated to myself internally to stay strong. Fine, I'll leave. I said those words as firmly as I could and turned to walk away. Yet my back trembled as I held back the tears that threatened to fall. To stop myself from breaking, I bit down on my molars so hard they ached. Still, a whisper escaped from the depths of my chest. Is this really happening? I couldn't tell if I was saying it to myself or to her. Suddenly, the fiancée clutched her chest and collapsed to the floor. Are you okay? My son's panicked voice echoed as he rushed to her side, cradling her. Her face turned pale, and it seemed she was on the verge of losing consciousness. Around us, the murmurs of the guests grew louder. Someone called for an ambulance, their voice urgent. At that moment, the sound of calm, deliberate footsteps approached from the entrance. I looked up and saw a familiar figure. He walked closer, holding a photograph firmly in his hand. We can't let it end like this, can we? His voice was low, but firm, resonating through the room. His eyes were sharp, like finely honed blades. His gaze alone shifted the atmosphere in the room. When he opened the photograph for all to see, a jolt of recognition struck me. That photograph. My name is Sarah James, 58 years old. I've worked as a cleaner for many years. My daily routine starts with polishing the office hallways in the early morning. Each stroke of my mop gradually reveals a clearer reflection of myself in the floor. Oddly, I find it satisfying. Through this work, I've come to see every corner of the company my late husband helped build. It's my way of staying connected to him and keeping his dreams alive. Every morning, I greet the young employees as they arrive with their fresh energy. Good morning! A cheerful new hire, still awkward in his suit, would greet me with a nervous yet genuine smile. His sincerity would remind me of my late husband, Jack, when he first joined the workforce. During lunch breaks, veteran employees would share stories of their families. Last weekend, we took the kids to the zoo for my son's birthday. Their joy reminded me of the bond my husband and I once shared with our son. Those brief moments of connection keep me going, even when the work gets tough. My late husband had a gift for creating a warm and supportive culture at this company. Employees respected him not just for his business acumen, but for his genuine care for their well-being. That legacy persists to this day, reflected in the smiles and camaraderie of the staff. Meeting him changed my life forever. We first met when I was a junior in college. I was studying accounting and always sat in the front row of my lectures. One day, he arrived late and took the seat next to me. With an embarrassed smile, he scratched his head and said, I can't make sense of these financial statements. Could you help me? At first, I wasn't sure, but as I explained, I noticed how intently he listened. His genuine focus was refreshing. Your explanations are easier to understand than the professor's. He said this with a straightforward smile that caught me off guard. Soon, it became a routine for us to study together at the library every week. Jack often talked about his dreams with an unshakable enthusiasm. I want to build a company where everyone can smile, not just one that chases profits. His passion was contagious, and I found myself drawn into his vision. One day, I asked him, "Can I share that dream with you?" He looked surprised, but then nodded with a radiant smile. That was the beginning of everything. After graduation, Jack introduced me to his friend Henry. Henry was an accomplished professional in a major corporation and intrigued by our ideas. "This sounds interesting. I'd like to join you two." His calm demeanor and strong sense of responsibility made him a trustworthy ally. Together, the three of us decided to start a company. We faced opposition from family and friends, but we forged ahead. Each of us took on roles that suited our strengths. Jack handled sales, I managed finance, and Henry oversaw planning. The company grew steadily, maintaining its close-knit culture even as the number of employees surpassed 300. Jack was known for his personal touch, even baking cakes for employees' birthdays. Watching him, I was inspired to pour love and care into the lunches I prepared for our son. Those days were the happiest of my life, but it all came to a sudden end during Jack's second year of middle school. My husband fell victim to a sudden illness, and before we knew it, he was gone. "Always take care of each employee." Those were his final words. Through tears, I promised him I would. He smiled faintly at my response, a moment I'll never forget. Jack was deeply affected by his father's death, always carrying his father's watch. "I have to protect Mom." He repeated those words like a mantra, and his determination inspired me to stay strong. At night, I often cried quietly into my pillow, but by day, I stood tall for my son. One afternoon, I noticed a cleaner drop a letter, and employees around her openly shared their struggles. This gave me an idea. If I worked as a cleaner, I could hear the true voices of our employees. That's how I decided to work behind the scenes, observing and supporting the company Jack had built. From that day forward, I became a cleaner working silently to uphold the company's values. Every morning, I polished the hallways and observed the employees' expressions. By noticing small gestures and subtle changes in demeanor, I could sense their emotions. A cheerful greeting sometimes brought a hesitant smile, and those moments became my quiet motivation. Being a cleaner allowed me to notice things others might overlook: forgotten memos, casually discarded documents, or snippets of conversation in the break room. These small details painted a picture of the company's current state. One afternoon, while cleaning under a desk in a subsidiary's office, I discovered a suspicious receipt. The amount was left blank, but it bore a signature, a clear sign of misconduct. My chest tightened as I realized the implications. I knew I could ignore it and continue my work as usual, but that would betray my husband's values. Discreetly, I photographed the receipt and began paying closer attention to that office's records. Over time, more questionable receipts and documents resurfaced, hinting at a deeper issue. I collected evidence carefully, determined to protect the company my husband and I had built. When I had enough to confirm my suspicions, I turned to Henry for help. "Henry, I need your expertise. This could jeopardize everything we've worked for. Let's dig into this together, just like old times." Together we spent weekends analyzing data and piecing together the truth. The work was exhausting, but the shared goal of protecting the company kept us going. Meanwhile, Brian shared exciting news. "Mom, there's someone I'd like you to meet." His eyes sparkled with joy as he spoke of his fiancée, Mary. "She's kind and thoughtful, just like Dad was." When I first met Mary, I was struck by her beauty and grace. Her warm demeanor and polite greetings made it easy to see why Brian was enamored. But when we were alone, her attitude shifted drastically. "A cleaner as a mother-in-law? That's embarrassing." Her cutting words froze me in place. The disdain in her eyes was a sharp contrast to the kindness she showed in Brian's presence. Later, when I offered to contribute to their wedding costs, Mary sneered. "With your salary? Don't make me laugh." Each comment was like a dagger, but for Brian's happiness, I bit my tongue. At night, I cried silently, staring at old family photos. One evening, while discussing our findings with Henry, I spotted Mary through the restaurant window. She was arm in arm with another man, laughing as they entered a luxury hotel. The scene left me in shock, my mind reeling. "Sarah, are you okay?" His steady voice brought me back to reality. "It's our mission to protect this company. And Brian." Those words gave me strength. The next day, we hired a private investigator. The evidence they gathered was damning. Photos of Mary meeting multiple men, records of unexplained financial transactions. I resolved to confront her, determined to protect my son and honor my husband's legacy. The wedding day arrived with clear blue skies. The weather seemed to celebrate the occasion, but my heart felt heavy. I carefully prepared myself, donning a simple dress and ensuring every strand of hair was in place. Brian appeared in his white tuxedo, looking more mature and confident than ever. "Mom, thank you for everything you've done for me." His voice wavered with emotion as he took my hands, the warmth of his touch filling my heart. Tears welled in my eyes, but I held them back, determined to stay strong for him. As we approached the venue, memories of our family's happiest moments flooded my mind. My husband's laugh, Brian's bright eyes as a child, and the dreams we built together, it all felt alive again. The ceremony venue was lavishly decorated in white and gold, symbolizing purity and hope for the future. Guests filled the room, their conversations creating a warm hum of anticipation. As I approached the entrance, a staff member stopped me. "I'm sorry, but your name isn't on the list." Confused and hurt, I explained. "There must be some mistake. I'm the groom's mother." Before I could say more, Mary appeared, radiant in her wedding gown. "Oh, it's you. This is a family-only ceremony. Please leave." Her words struck me like a blow, stealing the air from my lungs. "Family? You're saying I'm not family?" My voice trembled as I struggled to hold back tears. "Please, just go. You're embarrassing us." Guests turned to stare, their judgmental gazes piercing through me. My knees felt weak, but I clenched my fists, refusing to crumble. "Fine, I'll go." I turned to leave, each step feeling heavier than the last. Just as I reached the door, I heard Mary gasp. She clutched her chest and collapsed to the ground, her face pale. "Mary, are you okay?" Brian rushed to her side, panic etched across his face. The room erupted in chaos, someone shouting to call an ambulance. Amid the commotion, steady footsteps approached. I looked up to see Henry entering the room, a calm determination in his eyes. In his hand was a photograph. "Sarah, this ends today." He unfolded the photo and held it up for all to see. The image showed Mary entering a hotel with another man, the timestamp clear. The room fell silent as guests absorbed the damning evidence. This isn't what it looks like." Her voice wavered as she tried to deny it, but Henry's unrelenting gaze silenced her. "Every Wednesday at 3 p.m., you've been meeting this man." He laid out more evidence, receipts, financial records, and correspondence. "You've also been misusing company funds to support your lifestyle." Mary's face turned ashen as Henry continued. The guests, once captivated by the ceremony, now murmured in shock and disapproval. "I can't believe she did this. Poor Brian." The whispers grew louder, surrounding Mary with their judgment. She collapsed to her knees, unable to respond. Brian stood frozen, his fists clenched as he processed the betrayal. Why? His voice cracked as he stared at Mary, his pain visible to everyone. The wedding was called off, and guests quietly exited, their faces etched with shock. Later that evening, Brian came to me, his eyes swollen from tears. "Mom, I'm so sorry." He fell to his knees, overcome with guilt. "I should have seen it. I should have listened to you." I knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's not your fault, Brian. Trusting someone isn't a crime." He buried his face in his hands, his sobs echoing through the room. I pulled him to a hug, gently stroking his hair. "We'll rebuild together. Your father's dreams will live on through us." Over the next few days, Brian and I worked together to rebuild our confidence. He threw himself into helping at the company, taking on responsibilities with a determination I'd never seen before. Mom, I want to make this company something Dad would be proud of. His words reminded me of the strength my husband had always shown, and I knew we were on the right path. However, Mary's family was far from done. One morning, the lobby was filled with shouting. "Sarah, Mary's parents are here, and they're causing a scene." I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and walked to the front desk. "So, you think you can humiliate my daughter and get away with it?" His voice boomed through the lobby, drawing stares from employees and visitors alike. Mary stood behind him, arms crossed, glaring at me. "Please, let's discuss this calmly." "Calmly? After what you've done to our family?" Their accusations came like a barrage, but I stood firm. Brian made his decision. The evidence speaks for itself. Mary's father slammed his fist on the counter. "You'll regret this. I'll destroy your company and ruin your lives." His words sent a chill through the room, but I refused to back down. "You're welcome to try, but we'll face whatever comes together." I turned and walked away, leaving their threats hanging in the air. The next few weeks were a test of endurance. Several key contracts were canceled, and whispers of the scandal spread among clients. But Brian and I worked tirelessly, meeting with partners and reassuring employees. "Mom, I think we've regained their trust." His optimism was contagious, and I couldn't help but smile. One morning, Henry arrived with new evidence against Mary's father. "Sarah, this should solidify our case." The documents detailed years of financial misconduct, enough to take legal action. Armed with this evidence, we filed a lawsuit. The trial was grueling, but each piece of evidence further dismantled their defense. Mary's father was found guilty of fraud and sentenced to prison. Mary's family lost everything: their wealth, reputation, and power. Meanwhile, our company began to recover. News of our resilience spread, and new clients reached out, eager to work with us. "Mom, we did it. The company is stronger than ever." His words filled me with pride as I watched him step into his role as a leader. One evening, I stood before my husband's photo. We kept our promise. The company and Brian are thriving. His image seemed to smile back at me, as if to say, "Well done." I returned to the office the next day, greeted by the smiles of employees. They weren't just colleagues, they were family. Together, we faced every challenge, united by our shared commitment to the company. No matter what comes, we'll keep moving forward. And with Brian by my side, I knew our future was bright.